lady actually came twice to Alabama to try to create a union at Amazon and Mercedes-Benz. She called foul on 2 elections. We had to redo them. Yep. She is a true socialist communist. Yep.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Let's talk a little bit about right-wing populism. We have, Cenk Uygur is one of the hosts of the Young Turks, and he has been, I don't know that I would go so far. I'm not really familiar too much with his work. I don't watch the Young Turks very often, but he's been on something of a speaking tour, going around on some of these right-wing shows and talking about that this MAGA movement is different than the initial one, which he argued was kind of what was kind of corrupted and was not actually genuinely populist. But this one was, this MAGA movement is genuinely populist, and there are going to be some bad things on social issues. But Cenk thinks that there's some real opportunity here on the economic issues to work with the Trump administration and do good things for working people. Let's listen to this clip from Cenk Uygur about new MAGA.
Before, when I battled the right wing, it was a wall, right? I'm just like, nobody's listening to one another. They're just doing talking points. I hated it. And then MAGA looked like they were 100%. I'll be honest. I mean, in 2020, I was super pissed. And I said, look, I don't want to talk to Trump supporters. All I hear is the same thing. Trump, 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 Trump. And they never waver. So what I'm saying to the left now is, no, I'm seeing something new and different here. The MAGA base has changed. Okay, that doesn't mean they don't like Trump. It doesn't mean that they're not right-wing. But there is a significant portion of the MAGA base now that is, in my opinion, right-wing populists who are actually anti-establishment, actually anti-corruption, actually anti-war. And what I'm trying to tell the left is, take the win. Take the win. We've been standing opposed here for 20 years, trying to cut the Pentagon, trying to be anti-war, getting money out of politics. If people say yes, for God's sake, that's our lost tribe. Those are our right-wing brother and sisters who are Americans, who are populists, who agree with us. Let's go fight the establishment together, because if we're united, they cannot stop us.
Now, I think it's difficult to kind of figure out what's going on here in his mind. I am not above working with right-wing people. I mean, people who are listening to this live and not just as a clip will have heard me talking about how much I wish I had Republican people on my union's legislative committee that we could utilize to talk about, to be able to interface with Republican legislators. And so like there's a practical level of this, but there's also a problem in kind of, I think, being too precious about what's going on here. And so I think as the transition has been moving forward, there are like 2 things that I can identify that are reasonably, potentially pro-worker and populist. And one of those has been Donald Trump's support of the International Longshoremen's Association. For those of you who don't know, maybe we'll break it down a little bit more in detail later on in the show. But the longshoremen went on strike for a while, about a month ago, and they did not end the strike, really. They paused it and extended their current contract for about 3 months by coming to a tentative deal on wages while they continue to negotiate over automation. And so the automation fight is not over, and this contract extension expires like January 15th or something like that. So we could very well be seeing another longshore strike. And supposedly Trump had a good conversation with the International Longshore Union. He posted on Truth Social, Donald Trump did, just finished a meeting with the International Longshoremen's Association and its president, Harold Daggett, and executive VP, Dennis Daggett. There's been a lot of discussion having to do with automation on United States docks. I've studied automation and know just about everything there is to know about it. The amount of money saved is nowhere near the distress, hurt, and harm it causes for American workers, in this case, our longshoremen. Foreign companies have made a fortune in the U.S. by giving them access to our markets. They shouldn't be looking for every last penny, knowing how many families are hurt. They've got record profits, and I'd rather see these foreign companies spend it on the great men and women of the docks than machinery, which is expensive and which constantly have to be replaced. In the end, there's no gain for them, and I hope they will understand how important an issue this is for me. For the great privilege of accessing our markets, these foreign companies should hire our incredible American workers instead of laying them off and sending those profits back to foreign countries. It is time to put America first. Okay. So it's like, some of the rhetoric is not exactly how I would phrase it, but, the effect seems good. We'll see what he does when he's in office. He did not make a commitment not to invoke Taft-Hartley. Joe Biden did. Joe Biden said, I don't believe in Taft-Hartley. Does Donald Trump believe in Taft-Hartley? Does Donald Trump believe that he should have the ability to break a strike if he wants? I don't know. He didn't say. And then the ILA said some similar things about, that Donald Trump, the meeting with Donald Trump went well. And so, look, that's fine. The labor secretary is also another one that is arguably good, although we broke down how there's earlier, a couple of weeks back, how there is, some contestation about the degree of pro-workerness from Chavez de Reamer. And so, but... and you can go back to and watch that clip for more on that. But those are the only two kind of unambiguously pro-worker populist things that we have seen from this Trump transition team. What else have we seen? Well, we've seen Elon Musk attack the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which, just as a very quick overview, remember, has recovered $20 billion in stolen funds, in fraudulent transactions, has recovered $20 billion from companies who defrauded the American public and given it back to the American public for only $1 billion in cost of administration. And that $1 billion has not come from taxes, but rather from fines collected from some of these bad actor corporations. They have also been on the forefront of the fight against debanking of conservatives, the CFPB, and yet Elon Musk has been attacking it, trying to get it deleted. The Federal Trade Commission, headed by Lena Khan, during the Biden administration, has banned non-compete agreements, banned fake online reviews, capped the cost of inhalers at $35, blocked the largest grocery store merger in the country, forced click-to-cancel subscriptions. These are all things that they have done or are trying to do. The current, and now Lena Khan has not been reappointed by Donald Trump. Donald Trump has said he will be appointing, his name is Andrew Ferguson. I believe that's his name. Andrew Ferguson has said that he wants to end he wants to end Lena Khan's anti-business agenda. He wants to reverse the ban on non-compete agreements. He opposes banning junk fees. He recently opposed an enforcement action meant to prevent systemic wage suppression for employees in the building sector. Meanwhile, he said that he will utilize the FTC to undertake a war on woke. How is that populist? What's being proposed there? On OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, Trump has floated the idea of appointing Heather McDowell who is a former executive of Amazon, which has the highest injury rates in the warehouse industry. Approximately half of Amazon workers will undergo some sort of injury every year. Approximately 10% of Amazon workers will face injuries every year that require them to take time off of work. The Republicans in the Senate voted against reconfirming Lauren McFerrin, who has been a pro-worker board member on the National Labor Relations Board. Here's what Tommy Tuberville, a key Trump ally in the Senate and the U.S. Senator from Alabama, had to say about the relatively pro-worker, pro-union NLRB appointee Lauren McFerrin and why he voted against her.
I'll tell you how important this is. The National Labor Relations Board basically right now is controlled by the Democrats. If she had passed today, she would have kept control with the other 4 people on the board for the next 2 years. The Democrats would have controlled that. President Trump would not have had control. Joe Manchin, Krista Sinema stepped up to the plate and said, this is not right. We do not need to do this. They blocked her, and we're going to have an opportunity. This lady actually came twice, Larry, to Alabama to try to create a union at Amazon and create a union at Mercedes-Benz. She called foul on 2 elections. We had to redo them. It was a mess. She is a true socialist communist.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
You back, Jacob?
Okay, are we live again? Okay, cool. So OBS froze up, but I think we're back. And so there you go. There's Tommy Tuberville, who voted against reconfirming Lauren McFerrin, as did, let's remember, Josh Hawley and J.D. Vance. And it's just so, it's
a socialist communist, though.
A socialist
communist. A socialist communist was appointed by Joe Biden.
Right.
Can you believe that?
And let's listen to Donald Trump recently gave a speech to the New York Stock Exchange talking about how good his administration will be for the people who are at the New York Stock Exchange. And let me just tell you, those were not normal, everyday working Americans.
We're going to put it straight. We're going to give tremendous incentive like no other country has. We're cutting your taxes. We're going to cut them very substantially. We got them down to 21% from probably 42 or 44%, depending on where you are. And we got them down to 21. Everyone said that was a miracle. Now we're getting them down to 15, but only if you make your product here. Otherwise, you pay 21, which is not bad. It's in the middle of the pack. But 15 brings you down to among the lower. And
further cutting corporate tax rates. Super pro-worker populist. He is also now demurred on bringing grocery prices down, which was a key point of his campaign, talking about how he was going to rescind inflation, bring grocery prices down. And now he's talking about how, well, I like to bring them down, but it's hard to bring things down once they're up. It's very hard. So, look, I'm not convinced that this is actually, and also the important thing, part of Cenk's argument is that he thinks that to the extent that they try to veer from a populist pro-worker path, the base will attack him for this. I have not heard any sustained attacks from important people among the Trump transition team about Elon Musk wanting to delete the CFPB, about Donald Trump's bad appointee for the FTC, about Donald Trump's party refusing to reconfirm Lauren McFerrin, about Trump potentially appointing an Amazon executive to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. I've not heard any sustained real outcry about any of these things. And so I don't know why I would give them the benefit of the doubt. Of course, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth and refuse it if any good things come down the pike. But what are the good things coming down the pike that we're anticipating? I don't know. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating, especially as my whole shtick is that I am a class first union advocate, a unionist who puts that kind of stuff first. And I've actually been that way the whole time. For some of you who have not been longtime listeners to the program may not know that I used to be involved in the College Democrats, even as back in 2015, I was very socially conservative. I am no longer socially conservative, but I used to be. But I still thought that it was more important that we get single payer healthcare and a higher minimum wage than it was that the government enforce my personal social inclinations, which is why I get so frustrated with the supposed right-wing populists, is because you could have said that I used to be that. And, and when I was that, I felt like it was important. It was more important that people have health care. It was more important that we have a higher minimum wage. It was more important that we ensure that people have safe working conditions than it was that we banned gay marriage. Even as somebody who at the time thought we should ban gay marriage, right? I mean, so that is, it's just so frustrating that we're seeing stuff like this. And I don't know why some people ostensibly on the left are running cover for that idea. It's kind of,
Jacob,
does not make sense to me.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. And I think it's a matter of priorities. I don't think it's a surprise that, when they have to weigh these options, they just seem to side with the billionaire class, right? I don't think that's a coincidence. And so, rhetoric is one thing, but substance is something else. And we've seen this before. It's not new for Republicans to try to appeal to working class people through various cultural means, through various identity-based politics. And that's something that's really funny to me, is that a lot of conservatives will complain about identity politics when they've really been masters of that for a long time. It's not a coincidence that Ronald Reagan did a presidential campaign announcement speech at the Neshoba County Fair in Mississippi, miles away from lynchings during the civil rights era, right? And talked about states' rights.
Right.
Okay, that's not a coincidence, so there's been these long-standing appeals to kind of cultivate voters based on identity that both parties engage in. Something, I guess, responding to the clip directly, I make a distinction between rank and file voters and people who hold titles and influence and things like that. I'm like you. I think from a perspective of working class and class identity, and so I can engage with working class voters who vote differently than me or vote in a way I disagree with, right, because they're still my class siblings, right? We have so much in common. We have common enemies, whether they see that or not. And I think there's a difference there versus the actual politicians and the actual power players, in the other side, so to speak. And I take that same attitude when it comes to Democrats as well, make no mistake, I think you have to look at folks' material interest and where their bread is buttered. And, frankly, powerful business owners and the lawyers and accountants who work for them aren't like most of us. There's some basic differences there. And, to get on the whole, the faux populism thing that is paraded by the right, I think it is true that obviously they have made inroads with working class communities. That's true. There are people who are working class, predominantly white, but not exclusively, particularly we saw in this recent election, who are voting for Trump and voting for Republican candidates But that's not their base.
Mhm.
I don't. I would argue that's not really their base. I think their base is still pretty much the small business class. You know, and I think, yeah, and it's certainly not the base of power, resources, influence in the party. I would argue both parties are very much dominated by the oligarchs. But, you know, in the Republican case, is often much less hidden, you know, and there's no sense of shame about it. So, you know, I think it's very frustrating. Yeah, you're right, to see people sort of pander to that. You know, you gotta remind folks, and I appreciate you doing that. Remind folks the actual policies and how this really impacts people, because there's so much invested in getting people to think in these partisan mindsets and these cultural reaction mindsets and identity-based, you know, mindsets where, you know, people just aren't really, they're just thinking like more on a tribal sense. You know, this is my team and they're good and the other team is bad. And it's not helpful. It's just not helpful to think that way. And if you're like a regular ass person, like who works for a living, why would you, you know, don't fall into that trap. There's a lot of money and resources invested in confusing us and dividing us as everyday people, and getting us to think in these kind of mindsets, these limited mindsets of partisanship and, you know, well, blue team and red team, and idolizing these politicians who don't give a damn about us. So it's very, very frustrating. I share your frustration with it. But yeah, I appreciate you, you know, doing a little breakdown on some actual substance.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.